When I started learning about dinosaurs more seriously, I wasn't prepared for a major area of disappointment. How many seemingly well-known species are actually known only from miserable fragments or extrapolations of the flimsiest material. For example, this Machairoceratops I put off buying for the longest time because this is all we know of it: 2 squamosal bones. When you consider all the horny permutations in Ceratopsians, I often wonder how many normal variations have caused irrational exuberance in declaring new species. Is Rubeosaurus actually Styracosaurus, for example? So it's always exciting when you have new dinosaurs with more than 2 bones to rub together, and such is the case with today's star, Perez, the Machairoceratops. Now, they found a brain case, a left jugal, a left squamosal, the orbital horns, and the 2 very unique P1 epiparietals. Of course, I understand extrapolation through comparative anatomy has merits, but when you say you found this, and from thence you came up with this, now that's something I feel really excited about. Now, the most striking feature are, of course, these P1 epiparietals, which curve forwards and look really badass. Now, indeed, that's how Machairoceratops cronusi got its name. Now, Machairoceratops means bent sword horn face. The Machairo comes from Machaira, a curved Greek sword, so the link is obvious. The species cronusi part is where it gets really serious and reminds me of this old gem.
And Iago loved Desi like the Adonis loved Venus.
And Desi loved Othello
because he had a big sword!
Cronus was the king of the Titans, and his weapon was a sickle, another curved blade. And with that, he killed his father Uranus and cut off his
sword!
It's like whoever named it was worried that just in case we didn't get Machairo part, let's make doubly sure with the cronusi. Now, I've no doubt that the lucky strike with these horns were perfectly capable of emasculating any predator. Now, other than that, you see the epoxipitals here, and in general, the scalation is very finely detailed as you'd expect from PNSO. It's also very well painted. I like how the dark brown transitions so smoothly, whether it's down here to a lighter shade of brown or over here into the kind of goldenrod color, which, as you can see, is the main color of the animal. And actually, on mine, for some reason, if I just tilt this, the face looks a little bit shiny. Speaking of color, it's not too crazy, in general being this goldenrod, but with subtle shading on the body, the rostral side of the legs, and even here very nicely from your very dark brown feet slowly fading upwards. The markings are generally very naturally colored and blend very smoothly, as you'd expect with real pigmentation, but it's rather inconsistent. For example, you can see that these ones here are more starkly delineated. You can also see that the detail is very good. Look at the scales and the very subtle wrinkles down the throat, the sides. So they do vary regionally in terms of size and shape. Down the tail, just flipping on the underside, look at the fine, almost cross-hatching kind of pattern here. Is very, very nice. Up to the belly and the throat. So no complaints about the detail. Perhaps the only weird thing is the way these eye spots here are so clearly outlined, lacking the subtlety you see in the release images. And speaking of those, I apologize, I realized that on my boxes the color looks a bit off on camera because recently I've started to keep the clear plastic on for protection. Now, using the actual images, you can see how the eye spot margins are certainly more subtle, and we also lose some of that dark margin of the mouth. And there's less color on the parieto-squamosal junction. Otherwise, the color is generally so close that really any little changes can be attributed to individual variation, and your model may well differ from mine too. Now, on the release images, I like how the osteoderms are brought out, It looks like they might have done some kind of dry brushing, but unfortunately, these osteoderms are lost a little bit because the color is pretty uniform. You know, sometimes I think PNSO shoots itself in the foot with too beautiful a paint job on the released images, which can disappoint and detract from how good the models really are. As to body proportions, if you're familiar with the typical centrosaurine plan, well, that's what it is really. There's a general stockiness with the thick muscled legs that just seems to balance the head so well. Correct number of toes from PNSO as you'd expect, 5 digits on the hand and 4 on the foot. Although I think there's maybe a little slip of the paint on the right hand because it looks like the 4th digit is in fact hooved, which it shouldn't be. The pose is especially delightful to me because I don't have any Ceratopsian models with this mouth open, calling for a mate, challenging a rival, warning a predator look. Now let's look at this together with the PNSO Pachyrhinosaurus, which I'm sure you'd love to see. And perhaps also another similarly ornamented Ceratopsian, the PNSO Spinops. Now you can see that these two share a rather similar aesthetic in terms of the texturing especially, but this is no less beautifully done, especially the paint. And the paintwork on this Pachyrhinosaurus really still astounds me. Now the model itself is actually quite small at 16 centimeters. Now, since we have no post-cranial remains, we can only extrapolate from bodies attached to similarly sized skulls. And even the size of the skull itself is an estimate. Now I've seen estimates of 6 to 7 meters, so let's just use an average of 6.5 meters, which is 21 feet, making this 1 to 40th scale, happily the same as the Pachyrhinosaurus. And it just makes sense. This animal is about 8 meters to this one's 6.5. To give you a better idea of size, here is next to the wild safari Diabloceratops, then the wild safari Triceratops, and I'd say the closest he is in size is actually to this, the safari limited Nasutoceratops, if you have that. Now once again, this is a very delightful piece from PNSO. I'm happy that the standard matches that of the Pachyrhinosaurus, something I was concerned about when I reviewed that model. Now if the upcoming Ceratopsian is just as good, then Bob's your uncle as far as PNSO Ceratopsians go, and we can just hope for a Styracosaurus or a Triceratops on a similar scale. And although if PNSO really does intend to release a new figure every week till February, we have worries of a different kind than quality, the financial kind. Alright, that's it for now, my friends. Have a good week ahead. I'll see you again, hopefully very soon.